All right, let's dive right into this complete cradle-to-grave roadmap for setting up and managing a radiotherapy facility. Look, if you work in radiation oncology in India, you already know the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, or the AERB, governs absolutely everything you do. Today, in this explainer, we're unpacking their eLORA system guidelines, specifically focusing on the radiotherapy module. We are going to take what can honestly feel like a massive 42-page bureaucratic manual and translate it into a really clear chronological journey. We're going to break this down into 6 clear logical steps: registration and setup, declaring instruments and staff, managing your RSO, the regulatory clearance pipeline, maintaining your license, and finally, decommissioning and disposal. So, step 1, registration and setup. This is essentially the birth of your clinic. Now, laying the foundation means getting officially recognized by the regulators. Before you can even think about treating a patient or ordering a machine or finalizing a bunker design, you have got to master eLORA. That stands for the E-Licensing of Radiation Applications System. And just to be completely clear, this isn't optional. It is the absolute mandatory digital gateway for every single regulatory consent you will ever need from the ARB. The setup phase itself follows a very strict 3-step sequential ladder. First, you register the institute. Only after that can you register the employer. That's the person legally responsible for the facility. And finally, you register your radiation professionals. You simply cannot register your radiation oncology team until both the institute and employer profiles are fully scrutinized and approved. It builds from the ground up. And, when you're actually doing this registration, the system is incredibly unforgiving when it comes to documentation. As the employer, you absolutely must ensure your mandatory attachments are perfectly aligned with your application. Otherwise, you're looking at an immediate rejection. Like if you submit a PAN card for identity, the names and birth dates have to match your text input flawlessly. Plus, proving employership requires solid, undeniable evidence. We're talking a formal appointment letter or an official board resolution. Moving on to step 2, declaring instruments and staff, which is all about growing your resources. What's really interesting about this next phase is that eLORA demands a complete digital inventory of your physical resources. You literally have to prove you have the tools to be safe before you ever get the green light. You've got to declare 4 specific categories of tools. On the active dosimetry side, you need measuring tools, like thimble chambers, and monitoring tools, like survey meters. Then, on the verification side, you need QA tools, think water phantoms, and safety tools, like mechanical front pointers or T-rods for telecobalt units. You have to log every single one of these as either proposed if you plan to buy them or available if they're already sitting in your clinic. If that inventory isn't complete, your clearances won't move an inch forward. So, the crucial takeaway here is correctly categorizing your team in the system. Your radiation professionals, like your medical physicists and radiation oncologists, they must already have an approved eLORA ID to even be linked to your clinic. For other radiation workers, maybe technologists or nurses in the radiation area, it is absolutely mandatory to provide their specific PMS or TLD dosimeter number. And finally, you also need to declare your non-radiation workers, which is basically your administrative and support staff. Okay, step 3, managing your RSO, the maturation of leadership. With your staff in the system, it's time to appoint the most critical safety figure in your entire clinic. Who is actually guiding your safety? Well, it's your radiological safety officer, your RSO. Without an approved RSO officially linked to your institute in eLORA, your entire regulatory pipeline will come to a screeching halt. They are the linchpin for almost every single application moving forward. Let's look at the RSO lifecycle and how this builds inside the software. You start by nominating them, getting that first-time approval. Once they're approved, you have to renew their status 1 month before it expires. Now, if your clinic expands and you add new modalities, you use the renominate function to add those specific responsibilities to their profile. And actually, here's a massive administrative trap to avoid. If your RSO leaves your clinic, you must click Undesignate to revoke their safety role before you ever click Dissociate to remove them from your institute. Don't mix those up. That brings us to step 4, the regulatory clearance pipeline, operational operations. This right here is the absolute core of this explainer. It's the chronological hurdle race of actually getting your equipment running legally. This timeline represents the strict order of operations dictated by the AERB. You cannot procure a linear accelerator or a telecobalt machine without first having an approved bunker layout. And you can't commission that equipment without officially intimating the receipt of both the equipment and its radioactive sources in eLORA. Everything is incredibly interlocked. A major pain point for users is getting applications rejected simply over missing prerequisites. Always check your prerequisites. For instance, you literally cannot get procurement permission without that approved RSO and your completed instrument declaration. If you're loading a radioactive source, you need a source supervision authorization submitted exactly 15 days prior to the transfer. For commissioning, you've got to upload a signed undertaking proving your bunker was constructed exactly to the approved layout. And for that final license, you must prove satisfactory quality assurance and radiation protection surveys. All right, step 5, maintaining your license, longevity, and compliance. So you finally cross the finish line and receive your operating license. Awesome, but the focus immediately shifts to rigorous, ongoing maintenance to keep your doors open and your patients safe. Because your operating license isn't permanent, it is strictly valid for a period of exactly 5 years. And get this, you can't just renew it whenever you happen to think about it. The eLORA system will specifically enable the renewal form exactly 59 days before your license expires, not a day sooner. So you absolutely must mark your calendars and be fully ready to submit your updated QA and radiation survey data during that specific narrow window. A massive part of this ongoing compliance is routine reporting. Before you file any annual reports, you have to accurately map the current state of your machines using these exact eLORA operational statuses. You have to categorize every single source and machine as working, temporarily not in use, disused, or not working. Accuracy here is totally non-negotiable. Once your statuses are updated, you have to submit the Annual Safety Status Report, or the SSR. This is mandatory for all radiation facilities, and it has to be filed by January 31st of the following year. It's a highly specific process. You have to download an AERB-provided Excel template, meticulously fill in your safety and operational data, and upload it back into the system. It's just a routine that proves to the AERB that your facility remains as safe today as the day it was commissioned. And finally, step 6, decommissioning and disposal, the retirement phase. Eventually, every machine and facility reaches the end of its life cycle, which, as you might guess, requires just as much paperwork as its birth. You absolutely cannot just dismantle a telecobalt or Linac machine and wheel it out the back door. Before you even apply for decommissioning, you need to secure third-party guarantees. You need a formal acceptance letter from the equipment supplier agreeing to carry out the physical decommissioning, and, crucially, a concurrence letter from a recognized disposal agency stating they will safely accept the disused radioactive sources. That all leads to the final closeout process in eLORA. First, you get your decommissioning approval. Then, you must get specific transport permission to move the registered radioactive source off-site. And finally, you submit an intimation of disposal. This meticulous multi-step process ensures that no highly dangerous radioactive material is ever lost, stolen, or left unaccounted for during transit. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground in this explainer today. While the eLORA system might often feel like just an endless mountain of digital forms and prerequisites, understanding this exact chronological roadmap is your ultimate safeguard. It forces a culture of immense precision and accountability. So I'll leave you with this to think about. How does treating this bureaucratic life cycle, not just as a regulatory hurdle, but as a core clinical competency, ultimately guarantee unwavering safety for your staff, your patients, and your entire community? Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope this framework serves you well in your clinic.